Welcome to Sales Secrets from the Top 1%, where the world's best sales experts share their secrets to sales success. My name is Brandon Bornancin, a serial salesperson and entrepreneur, and I'm sitting down with the world's best sales experts to share their top secrets to sales success. Hello and welcome to this episode of Sales Secrets from the Top 1%, where the world's best sales experts share their secrets to sales success. And I am thrilled, honored, humbled, and grateful to have with me today, Art Sobczak. Art is an award-winning author who's delivered content-rich inside sales and cold calling training programs for over 3 decades. His latest book, Smart Calling, hit #1 on Amazon.com sales category its very first day and was named top sales book a few years back. And in 2012, Art also received the Lifetime Achievement Award from the AA of Inside Sales Professionals for his massive contributions to the sales community. I've been following Business by Phone's newsletter for years. One of the first books I personally read in sales. Art, thank you so much for joining us today. We are thrilled to have you.
Brandon, thank you for inviting me. It's an honor and a pleasure. Really looking forward to this.
Awesome. And we were just chatting about how right when I got into sales, one of your books, was one of the first ones that I read. And I've just been a huge fan of Smart Calling, of Business by Phone. I think, after reading Smart Calling, I joined your newsletter, and that was, I'm getting constantly dripped. Dude, I've been getting dripped from you for like a decade. I mean, it's incredible, all the strategies and tips and best practices that I've learned over the years. But, the audience is dying to know, Art, 2 things. Number 1, who are you? How did you get started in sales? What are the secrets that you've learned at all the places that you've worked, the successes and failures that helped you level up to maximize the sales potential of you today? And then number 2, sales secrets from the top 1%. What is your top sales secret? But let's get started with number 1. Art, I'd love to personally know, and I know the audience would love to know, who are you? Where'd you come from? How'd you get started in sales? And where'd you work along the way? And what'd you learn?
Well, how far back do you want to go? One thing I always say is that everybody is a born salesperson. Some people just choose to not make it their career or their job along the way. But I'll give you my very first job as a salesperson was as a newspaper boy when I was about 10 years old. So of course you're selling there, but I guess the first real sales job that had sales in the title was, get this, I was 13 years old. And I took the bus down into downtown Omaha, where I'm from, along with another buddy. He was much older. He was 15. And we got a job selling tickets over the phone to the Fraternal Order of Police fundraising circus. Now, what we did was, it was your typical boiler shop, where they gave us pages out of a phone book. Many people who are viewing this right now probably don't know what that is, but they actually ripped pages out of a phone book, and we were calling people at home, selling tickets to this circus, which in retrospect probably was a scam. I'm not even sure if there was a circus.
So literally like a circus with animals,
Yeah. That's
to fundraise for the police?
For the Fraternal Order of Police, which I'm not even quite sure is a real organization.
Right. Dude, that's crazy. I want to keep diving in. It's so funny. My first job, 15, was cold calling for a police office, like the same thing. But I was in a boiler room, and then they had the computer scripts on old school computers. And I think it was the same thing. I was fundraising for donations for the police and firefighters.
There you, yeah. And if they did get any money, it was probably about 2% or so. But so I did that. And then I had a number of different jobs all throughout high school and college, but it seemed like I gravitated always into sales positions, and particularly over the phone. And I worked for a couple other telemarketing type operations where, again, you're working in a typical boiler shop. But I found that I was pretty good at it, and just talking to people. And of course, we would have scripts, and we'd have the old objection flip charts. And I always found that I was pretty good at improvising, able to, BS, talk to people and get them to do things just based on talking. And I also found that I could make a lot better money than I could mowing lawns, which I did, better than worked in restaurants, which I did, and I always came back to the sales position. And you want me to keep going with the different sales positions here?
No, keep going.
Another job that I had in college, ultimately I wanted to get into broadcasting.
Okay.
So I got a job actually the week after I graduated from high school as a DJ for a mobile music service. And that's when mobile music services were just starting. It was at the late 70s, early 80s. And I spent my 4 years of college every weekend playing wedding receptions and parties. So in a sense, that was sales too, because what I'm doing is...
We've got a DJ booth here at our office, my man.
What's that?
I said, we've got a DJ booth here at the office where we live DJ. So you were like selling your DJing services to the different parties and weddings and whatnot?
Well, actually, I worked for a company that actually became one of the biggest franchisors of DJ services in the country. But I worked with them as a startup. And then what I also did was I worked in the office selling. And mostly it was inbound, but it was also working outbound leads from bridal shows. So again, the common theme here is sales, talking to people and, getting people to buy into your ideas, asking questions, and being insensitive to the nose, putting yourself out there. A lot of the things that I continue to use to this day, and everybody out there who's in sales also uses. So then that brings us up into corporate life. So you want me to segue into that?
Yeah, that's. Oh, and by the way, did you have to, when you were selling the DJ stuff, did you also have to DJ or no?
Yes, I was. Sales? Yeah, I was primarily a DJ on the weekends. During the week, I worked in the office. That was just one. I had another sales job as well. I sold advertising.
You were doing the entertainment while also selling to fulfill the entertainment. Like, that's funny.
Yeah, there were actually several. I think there were about 10 DJs, but I was the one that worked in the office as well. And then, of course, you also sell at the events, because if prospective bride comes up to you and says, "Hey, we're thinking about having you guys do our wedding," then we go into not a pitch, but what I still teach today, and that's asking, well, when's your wedding? What are you looking for? Are you having a great time? What type of music do you want to have at your wedding? What kind of experience do you want your audience to have? And again, I was using the same things back then that I use and teach today.
That's awesome. Okay, so you finished kind of out the college thing. You were doing the entertaining. Was there anything major that you learned actually before we go into corporate that you learned when you were selling for the DJ company?
Well, one thing I learned is that a lot of the crap that some of the boiler room managers were perpetuating wasn't my style, and it really didn't work in the real world. The crazy guy running up and down the aisles, you got to love rejection, you got to eat rejection for breakfast. And even back then I'm thinking, if I love something, I want more of it. I don't want more rejection. I want to figure out a way to not feel like I'm being rejected as a result of what I'm doing. So I always was questioning what was being taught. And it's a good thing. Sometimes it got me in trouble because at times you're being perceived like you know more than the manager. And in a lot of cases I did. But again, just being inquisitive and always asking why. Why are we doing it this way? And might there be a different way to do it? So I always found that I was tinkering a little bit and just using a lot of common sense in my sales. And again, that's what I find today. Too many people try to overcomplicate sales. And the older I get, the longer I do this, the more I realize how simple sales really is. I mean, it's people, it's humans communicating with other humans and then being interested in them and trying to understand their why and what makes them tick and what's going to make them do something. They're not going to do things for my reasons. They're going to do things for their reasons. So I got to find out what those reasons are. And I learned that pretty early. And that's what I attribute a lot of my early success to and ongoing success to as well.
Wow. Yeah. And it sounds like you got the discovery like early on. It sounds like you're applying a lot of great sales discovery techniques. Like, oh, the bride comes up to you. Instead of just trying to picture, okay, great, when's the wedding? Here's how much it costs. Like, it sounds like you went deep into the discovery and you were super kind of value obsessed with the persona on what were their needs and then providing a solution that met that, or probably referring them out. That's awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
No, that's great feedback. So, okay, you're done with the entertainment DJ thing. What, take us through corporate.
Yeah, time to go out in the real world. Well, I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur, and I knew I wanted to do my own thing. And even in college, that was my plan. And I was fortunate. I went to Creighton University in Omaha, and I had two professors who actually wrote textbooks on small business management, small business marketing. So my senior year, I'm taking courses from the guys that wrote the textbooks. And again, my plan was to go into some type of business. So I'm spending the entire year reading Entrepreneur magazine and Inc. magazine. Those were around back then. And I'm thinking, what can I go into here? And one of my projects for one of the classes was we actually had to put together a business plan that we could take to the bank to get financing for. And I did the research. Get this, I did mine on a bathtub refinishing franchise.
Wow. I don't know anything about that.
And well, I didn't either, other than I know I wasn't very mechanical, and I'm still not at this point, but I realized that I would be hiring other people to do it. I'd probably have to learn it initially, but it looked like a good opportunity. So I did the research, and I did the business plan, got an A+. The professor said, hey, you'd be able to take this to the bank and get financing on. But at the time, I was growing up pretty quickly at a young age. I always say I grew up quickly in my 20s, and now I'm enjoying my childhood. But
that's awesome.
What I also realized, I was getting married a week after I graduated, is that I really needed to get some real experience in corporate life, and also needed some income coming in. So I had a number of different job offers, mostly sales. And I decided I was going to take one with AT&T, which was one of the better offers, one of the better opportunities, enabled me to move to Kansas City, which I love because I was a big lifelong Royals fan. And I got a job working for, get this, the Bell System Sales Center, which was back in the early 80s. The Bell System was promoting this thing called telemarketing. Now, telemarketing did not have a bad name back in the day. Telemarketing, as they were promoting it, was business to business sales using the phone. And at the time, for those of you that weren't born yet, there was only one phone company. It was the Bell System. And they sold long distance in the form of 800 numbers and these things called Watts lines. And in order for them to grow, the only way that they could grow is to get more people, more businesses to use more of their service. So they figured that a great way to do that was to teach businesses how to use the phone more effectively. Thus, they would show them how to do what is today inside sales, business development, right? So what we were doing, they trained us, the snot-nosed kids right out of college, what telemarketing or today's inside sales is, how to do it effectively, how to strategize, how to set up an inside sales, again, we called it telemarketing department. They did a tremendous amount of advertising to generate leads, to get people to call in and say, hey, how do I do this? How can I do this outbound sales stuff? How can I generate more incoming calls through my advertising and direct mail and so on? So we were consulting with businesses on how they could do that, but at the same time, the end goal, of course, is to sell the network services. And I just embraced that, loved it. And I, in less than a year's time, sold $1 million worth of their services.
Wow.
And realized I was pretty good at this, but at the same time also realized I wasn't cut out for corporate life. So kind of flashback to what I said earlier about knowing more than the managers, and really was not keen on playing the corporate game. As a result of that, I would see people get promoted who weren't producing at the level I was, but they were kissing ass and they knew how to play the game, which I refused to do. So the entrepreneurial bug was still there, and
That's
I decided.
I've never had a good time playing politics. It's tough. I feel like it just wastes time.
Well, it wastes time, and it's really counterproductive to what the business is trying to accomplish, because you got a lot of people who are just trying to cover their own ass, right? Anyway,
maybe that's why we're both entrepreneurs.
Well, I couldn't do anything else, that's for sure. So what I decided was, how can I do this, what I'm doing right now, and that being consulting with businesses on how to do inside sales and telemarketing. How can I do that on my own and make money from it? Well, I also became friends with another guy there. There were about 60 of us on the phone, typical corporate people wearing the blue suits, red ties. And he had the same idea. Brilliant guy. And we decided that we were going to leave and start our own consulting company. And we both had a pretty good track record of sales, and the guy had an MBA from Michigan State. He was pretty savvy business wise. So we went out and started our own consulting firm. Me at the ripe age of 23, and
Wow.
then really proceeded to make about every mistake in the book. So for those of you out there considering doing your own deal, don't leave before you have any backup plan or money coming in or potential clients already lined up. Okay. So there's one piece of advice. And don't go out and invest in furniture and office space either if you don't have revenue coming in.
I love that one too. That was a big mistake I made. Yeah.
Somehow I missed that in business school. They didn't teach that in, the upper level business classes.
Well, because you're so worried about what you look and what you like, how people perceive you. And then like the minute that you could just not give a shit what anyone thinks is the minute you could really unleash your potential. Like, you selling over the phone, you could do that in your house. You could do it in your basement. You could do it in a closet. Like you don't need all the fancy jazz, I bet. And it sounds like that was learned the hard way.
Yeah. Back then, working at home was kind of a novel concept. Definitely wasn't as easy as it is today. But so yeah, definitely made a lot of mistakes. But you know what? We were good enough and cocky enough to go out and acquire clients. And what happened is, like a lot of small businesses, we weren't really bringing in enough revenue to have it be sustainable. And also what happened, you're always going to have some setbacks, as you know, when you first start out. My partner decided he didn't want to be in this business anymore. He actually wanted to go to law school. So he did, and he's an attorney now. So now I say at least one of us has a reputable profession. I'm here all week, folks.
That's awesome. That's funny.
So what I did was I actually had a client that was a call center at the time, and they needed somebody. They were an inbound call center. They needed somebody to run and start up an outbound division. And I thought, okay, well, this will be a good opportunity. So it was actually more of a job than it was just a consulting gig, because it took almost full-time commitment. So I decided to do that. Plus it was providing some regular revenue. So I did that for about a year, build it up. And so what I was doing there was actually selling the service, acquiring the clients, and doing the operations.
Wow. It's a lot.
Yeah, no kidding. And I also realized I'm not an operations guy. I'm a sales guy. And in the meantime, I was still doing some training on the side, and I had started the newsletter at that point and turned it into a paid publication. And ultimately, I reached the point where I said, I need to do this on my own and go out and do it. Actually, you know what? I had one more step in the process. I got recruited by another call center, which was a division of American Express at the time. And it offered more money and the opportunity to move back to Omaha. So I had a young kid at the time, another one on the way. So we had an opportunity to go back and be close to the grandparents, and again, bigger company, more opportunity. So I took that position, but after about 6 months, again, realized I got to do my own thing. I've got to make this work. So I made the jump, and this time had a better plan in place, and decided that there's no looking back here. Cut the cord, and I'm going to be the best possible sales trainer there is out there, specializing in inside sales, business to business. And that's what I did, and put in a tremendous amount of hours, and had successes along the way, and then just continued building upon that. Wow. Over the years. So there you go. Amazing. There's a long answer to your short question.
That's amazing. What was the biggest thing that you learned working at Bell before you went on your own? In sales specifically, because I know you mentioned you learned some things like, hey, shouldn't have started my company without a client roster, shouldn't have gotten office space. But like, what did you learn in sales that was like a big strategy or secret or failure or success that you applied to then launching your own thing with the guy from the law school?
Well, first of all, they had some tremendous training, and that was my first exposure to real corporate sales training. So, I mean, so obviously they threw a lot of money at that. They've been doing it for a while. So they knew what they were doing. It helped me understand sales process. There are definitely parts to the sales call. And I would say that's the science part of it. And I always say, sales is part science and part art, no pun intended.
Did you invent that? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
You should start telling people I invented that. Part art, part science, sales.
No, actually, there are people out there who claim to have invented sales, but I won't take credit for that. But what I also learned is the art part from some of my managers. There were some people there that I had some tremendous respect for. And just listening to them speak and coach and work with salespeople, I realized that you can learn all you want from books, but you have to be doing it and experiencing it, which of course I was doing every day. But the other one is you want to get introspective with marrying the two, and that is, I'm using this process, but we also have the human element. And where can I tweak this? And how can I add to my bank of experience based on everything that I'm running into? So, for example, I'm a big believer in scripting out many of the things that we say on calls. Not Love scripting that. In the sense of the telemarketer in the boiler shop, but a script in the sense of the actor, so that it never sounds like you're working from something that's prepared. Now we can totally script out what we're going to say in our openings and our voicemail messages, because most people still answer the phone with some variation of hello, right? So we can know exactly what we're going to say. But then after that, we got to go with the flow. But that doesn't mean that every single thing can't be prepared based on the art and the science.
1,000%.
Right? Because everything you're going to run into, you've likely have, if you have any experience, you've likely run into it in the past. And if it's something new and it trips you up, we learn from every single call. So then we sit back and say, after the call, okay, what would I have done differently? What will I do differently? If I don't have the answer, I'm going to go find the answer. Then I'm going to add that to my bank of experience.
I'm always shocked that people, it's funny because like my posts that get the lowest likes and positive feedbacks are when I'm talking about the importance of scripting. And I think it's one of the biggest game changers. I did a big video about like every movie that you go and see in the world ever shot was using a script. Does it look like they're reading out of a script like a robot? It's like, I just can't believe people still don't see this like strategy or secret that you're talking about.
Well, I mean, I could go on for a half hour on this, but it kills me. The people who are anti-script, would they go to an actor and say, hey, don't worry about a script, just be yourself?
It's just like, come on.
Yeah. Or would they go into a doctor for surgery and say, hey, you know what, just kind of wing it, I'm good.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Just go into, that's a good one. That analogy is great. Yeah. Hey, surgeon, just, do whatever floats your boat here.
Yeah, just be yourself.
Yeah, just be yourself. That's awesome. And you kind of give up another secret with scripting is like, you had mentioned that you're going to see the same types of things happen over and over again. And if it's new, then you learn, and then you make sure that that's not new to you again, and you've got a good response or a good way to handle that feedback or that script or that language.
Well, I mean, it's kind of interesting because, I mean, obviously you're involved in AI, and that's a big thing today. I mean, how is AI built? It's based on taking experiences, learning from it, and predicting how you need or how it needs to react or respond based on a certain set of circumstances, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, at the very core, it's an if this, then that statement repeated over and over again that gets optimized. If this, then that. If the prospect says this, then do this.
Yeah. And the original artificial intelligence is actual intelligence. And that would be being prepared for what we're going to say based on past history, and then based on our continued bank of experience that we're building on with every single call. But the problem is, a lot of people don't learn from their experiences. They just continue to repeat it. It's like the old story of somebody asked a sales manager, how many sales guys do you have working for you? And he said, about half. And he says, I have a lot of guys here with a lot of years of attendance, but not a lot of years of experience, meaning that they're just continuing to do the same thing over and over without learning from it and getting better.
That's incredible. And how did you learn the power of like the scripting and the power of like analyzing these scenarios and almost A/B testing how you respond and all this jazz? Like, was that what Bell taught you, or did you kind of see it as you were selling throughout your career?
Yeah, I don't think there's any one aha moment where I said, "Oh, okay, now I know the Holy Grail is kind of like, the angels are coming down." I think it was just something that I always did, even at an early age. But then what happens is, as you refine that, and then as you're exposed to more of the actual proven science of it, then it starts to make sense. And I got to tell you, it's a lot of work as well. Because one thing I did, Brandon, is when I decided I was going to start my business and I was going to make a living doing training, because of my young age, I knew that I had to be better than anybody else out there. I had to really know my stuff. So, and I still do this to this day. Anytime I'm looking at something new, I go into mass information accumulation mode. I go out and find every possible thing that I can consume on it, and then just start processing it. So we were speaking before, you said when you got into sales, you went out and read every single sales book that you could find. I did the same thing with sales and telemarketing at the time. And
it's exhausting.
The sample was pretty small at that point. And we didn't have this internet thingy back then. So I just had to go out and find whatever was published. And by the way, there's an awful lot of great stuff that was published years ago that is still pretty relevant as it relates to psychology and influence and persuasion.
For sure.
Because, I mean, the human brain really hasn't changed a whole lot over the past 1,000 years. People are still doing things for certain reasons. And there's a lot of that we're using every day in the sales process.
Yeah, and I think like when I read your book, what was great is that like reading your book and a few others taught me that, okay, there's these different scenarios that come up all the time. There's you can write this stuff out in advance. Like, you guys slowly, experts like yourself kind of educated me on that, which was like super powerful. Luckily for me today, I did have 100 plus, I read over 130, 40 sales books. And that's how I personally optimized, by reading your content and your newsletters. And, I got lucky, but that's incredible. So then you launch your own thing, the partner leaves, right? Your consultancy, and you stick with it. You keep fighting. What's been some of the biggest sales successes or failures that you've ran into running by business by phone art? And that will lead us probably a great intro into your top sales secret.
Sure. Greatest successes. That's a tough question. I mean, I've had a lot of great successes. One thing that I realized is that in my business, I realized pretty early that I was just not a speaker or a trainer. There are a lot of people that will come up to me at workshops and they'll say, "Oh, wow, I want to be a speaker." And I'll say, "Well, that's great. The key is making a business out of it." And what I learned early on is that I was a content provider even before the term content marketing or information marketing was out. And every time I created something, actually, I was doing a newsletter, a paid subscription newsletter, even before I was doing a lot of training. And really, everything that I teach today is a result of something that I first researched, used, and then wrote about. And that is what I still teach on. And again, I'm on the phone. I still sell every day, but I'm still writing. And that's one thing that I learned early on. And I would suggest that everyone does. And obviously, it's a lot easier today to be published. We can publish every day, and you're a tremendous prolific publisher yourself, so you know the power of that.
Well, I think people like you taught me that. Was there a ton of so like that's interesting. You just didn't want to be on the whole like speaker bandwagon, try to sell the keynotes. You were like, I'm going to just create a bunch of content that I'll educate, provide value, and sell with your paid newsletter.
Yeah, paid newsletter, and then that morphed into products. We had cassette tape programs, and then eventually I put my material into books. I published my first book back in the early 90s, and so I really had a publishing company, and I was also a speaker and trainer, and that's what the business is today. Even though I guess we still have some physical product. Most of it is online, and of course I'm still doing the speaking and training, but a lot of it I'm doing just like we do right here in front of a microphone and do it virtually. But still get a great thrill by being up in front of audiences and working hands-on with salespeople. And I find when I sit down and listen to phone calls, not a whole lot has changed as far as the mistakes that people make and also what works. And again, sales reps are making the same mistakes that they made 20 years ago.
What do you think some of the biggest mistakes are? Yeah.
What are they?
Yeah. Like, what do you think? You said they're making the same mistakes, and I definitely agree. What do you see as like the biggest mistake that they're making?
Oh, I would say absolutely calling up and just pitching and not knowing anything about the person that you're calling. And that's actually going to be my secret.
Nice. Yeah. All right, audience. Sales secrets from the top 1%, where the world's best sales experts share their secrets to sales success. Let's dive into Art Sobczak's secret to sales success.
Well, it really isn't rocket science, and it's the same thing that I've been teaching for years, and it is know something about the person in the organization that you're calling, and craft and tailor and personalize your message so it is relevant to them and what's going on in their world. And you want to do that as much as you possibly can before speaking with them. And that's what we call the smart call. And one of the biggest mistakes I see, and I get these calls pretty much every day, is somebody calling me. They have no idea who I am, and they're giving me a pitch. So, for example, last week, and I've got this one recorded, and actually I record all my...
Oh, yeah, that's what I love about what Art does. I love when you do these recorded calls, man. They're so funny.
Well, there's entertainment value there for sure, but hopefully there, I in my training I actually use them as training points. But anyway, so this guy calls me and he goes, "Yeah, I'd like to speak with the person there who's in charge of your shipping." I said, "My shipping of what?" And he said, "Shipping of whatever that you might ship there."
My shipping of what?
And I said, "Do you know anything at all about what we do?" And he said, "Well, no, not really." He said, "Business by phone, probably something with phones." nothing gets by this guy, right?
Oh, wow. He's smart. Nailed it.
And I said, so you really didn't do any research. You don't know what I do, but you're gonna ask me about my shipping. He goes, yeah, pretty much. What kinds of things do you ship? And I said, it really doesn't faze you at all that you know nothing about me, right? He goes, no, I'm just wondering what you ship. I go, okay. I said, I really don't ship anything. And I says, for what I do, I use a fulfillment service. And I know what these guys do. They're actually one of the largest logistics companies out there. I won't embarrass them with the name. But that's an example of the types of calls that are being placed every day. Now, there are people out there who subscribe to the more of the numbers game type mentality. And that is, if you're doing business development, if you're doing prospecting, you really don't need to waste time doing research. And you just got to place the calls and bang out those calls, 100 calls, 1,000 calls a day or whatever. And to me, that is just so ridiculous. And they'll say you're actually wasting time by doing research. Well, here's the rebuttal or the answer to that. Number one, if you don't know anything about the person that you're calling, you're pretty much going to have a generic type of pitch or presentation. You are playing the numbers game. And some people say that bad calls do not reflect badly on an organization. But my feeling is actually they do. If you leave a horrible voicemail and they look at your caller ID, that's going to stick in their mind and say a couple things. One is, geez, I can't believe that company's doing that. The other one is, when that call comes in, I'm never going to take that call again. And it also greatly lessens your chances of ever gaining an audience with someone. Today, we are bombarded with, depending on what research you look at, anywhere between 300 to 3,000 messages, different forms of messages per day, either proactively or reactively, that are just going on around us. And we're only reacting to or responding to a couple of them per day. So how do we cut through the clutter? Well, the only way we're going to have a chance of doing that is having something that is going to resonate with Brandon that's going on in your world right at this very moment. And I got to give some indication right away that I'm different than every other salesperson out there who's trying to get a piece of your time. And I don't have a whole lot of time to do that. So what messages are we going to listen to? Well, common sense and human nature says we're going to be interested in something that's all about us, right? Yep. Something that's going to affect us at that moment in time. And as salespeople, whatever we can do to have a message that's going to resonate with that person, we should be employing that. Now, going back again to the people that say, oh, you don't have time to do research, it's taken away from your calling time. Let me ask you, and you probably know this number, what's the latest study on how many attempts it takes to actually get somebody on the phone? What are some numbers that you've heard?
12, 15, 22. Definitely over 12 is what I'm hearing. Maybe not just over the phone, but at least like touches. Right? Sure. At least 12 touches to maximize the connection and engagement. So what about you?
Here's all over the board. Depends on that. That's why I'm never a big fan of general numbers. Anytime I see a general stat out there, I always have to question what's the motive of the organization putting it out. Because are they doing enterprise software or are they selling office supplies? So what's the sales cycle? What's the sales process? But anyway, my point is this: if somebody's doing research, we do the research once. Then we put it into our CRM, and then we just remind ourselves of that prior to the next contact, because we're not going to be reaching them for X number of contacts. So I don't have to do all that research every time. I just remind myself of it before the next call. And now when I do get somebody on the phone, now I am more prepared with a relevant conversational value, and I call it possible value. Because people will say, well, you need to have an elevator speech. You need to have your value prop. Well, the thing is that I can't tell you what's of value to you. I can only surmise. I can only have a hypothesis of value. Now, I can make it an educated one based on some things I know about you, based on what you post, based on what I see about your company, based on what I see about trends in the industry, based on questions I'm going to ask of somebody else in your company. And I call that social engineering, which is the very best real-time form of sales intelligence. And people will answer questions if you ask. I mean, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, right. That's a secret in and of itself, for sure.
Yeah. So there's my secret. And really, if I had to boil it down, somebody on another interview, they asked me, really get simple with this. What's one piece of advice you would give to salespeople, somebody new in sales? And I said, pretty simple, get information before you give it.
Okay. Get information before you get it.
Get information before you give it.
Oh, before you get it. Okay.
Right. I mean, at the most simple level, for sales reps who are handling inquiries, incoming calls, somebody calls you up and says, "Hey, yeah, I saw your ad, or I saw your demo, your webinar, whatever. Tell me what you can do for me. Tell me, give me your pitch." Now, at that point, still, there are salespeople that will start going into data dump mode, puking out a presentation, talking about their thing. Yep. And I'm kind of known for, don't talk about your thing. Talk about your possible results, right? So I got to get some information before I can possibly tell you how I can help you. I mean, somebody called me up a couple months ago, and she says, "Yeah, we're looking for some sales training. Why should I hire you?" And I said, "I don't know. Why'd you call me?"
That's awesome.
And she went on.
That's awesome.
And she spoke for about 30 minutes telling me why.
One question you asked, right?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Tell me about you.
Yeah. No, I found out her why. I said, "Why'd you call me?"
That's awesome.
And again, that gets back to too often salespeople over-engineer the whole thing, the whole process. It's like, I got, even though I'm a big believer in process and I have my 7-step sales process, which works for virtually any type of sales or prospecting call or variations of it, I'm a big believer in, hey, let's talk. Let's have a conversation. And too many times, again, when I'm listening to sales and prospecting calls, reps will get into corporate voice. "Hello, Mr. Prospect." As opposed to, hey, like you and I are sitting here just shooting the breeze.
Yeah, that's amazing.
But by the same token, don't want to get too formal, bro, or too informal, just kicking it.
Yeah. I love that. That's awesome. Yeah, true. Yeah. So like, be yourself, be authentic. Don't be too, I'm not going to say too authentic. Don't be too like ease of ease or whatever. How did you use that? Like the bro thing.
Yeah.
When it comes to, so at the beginning of The Secret, you said craft, tailor, personalize, smart call. And then you kind of tied it into get information before you give it. Are those both this kind of like the same strategies, or is it like, hey, get information and then craft, tailor, personalize, and that's the smart call?
Yes, exactly. So in my process, what we're doing is probably using Seamless.AI to get the leads. So we have the name of a person and we have the phone and the email,
Thank
right?
You, sir.
So and plus, hopefully, we have some other information about them. Yeah. So I'm going to do my research. I'm going to figure out what can I use that's going to be tied into my product or service that is going to help create a lean in moment right at the beginning of the call, where they're going to lean in and say, this sounds like something that would be of possible interest. So let's say, for example, I sell a service to book publishers that is pretty unique in that it can help them get mass distribution and get them to the top of the bestseller list pretty quickly.
Wow.
And
is this a service that you do, or are you talking about like this is an example?
No, I'm using an example with you because of this book I heard that you're doing.
I was like, shit, does Art do this? I need some help, man. Okay, sorry, keep going. Okay, so Brandon's got Sales Secrets from the Top 1%.
Yeah.
Art knows that I've got the book, and you're talking to me, hey, I've got this service. Go ahead, keep continuing.
Right. So, I mean, you'd be a
Shit, I was almost ready to buy right there. I'm like, damn, does Art have this service? I need to set up
as a good sales guy, I could probably come up with something for you. But, but I mean, you would be a real easy example because you're out there, right?
Yep.
But but if I did sell that type of service, I mean, my radar would constantly be out there looking for people by whatever means who I know are publishing books, looking to publish books. I will probably partner with people who teach people how to become a self-published author. I would do research on them. I would study their social media. I'd figure out, how far along are they? Because that's something that people are bragging about. So anyway, I'm looking for that information. If they work at a company, I would do this thing called social engineering, which I didn't invent the term. Computer hackers did. Social engineering is just simply calling into an organization and asking questions of somebody other than the decision maker. So in your case, I might call in and talk to an assistant or somebody else in your marketing department, and I'd introduce myself and say, "Hey, I'm with Books R Us, and I'm going to be speaking with Brandon on his new book project, and we may be able to help him." I imagine you probably work closely with him, don't you? Oh, you do? Great. Well, let me ask you a couple questions. What do you know about his marketing strategy, and what are his plans to make a big splash? And I may get some good information. I may not. I may get some absolute gold. I might find out that this is somebody that's working on the project with you, and they say that, that is something that he's kind of concerned about. Wants to make sure that we got to get out there really quick and get some mass distribution. Oh, awesome. Okay, good. So now what I'm doing is I'm looking at the benefits of what I sell, the possible benefits. I'm looking at what I know about you, and then I'm plugging it into my smart call opening. And basically it goes like this. I'm going to introduce myself and my company. I'm going to use some of my intelligence and say, "Hey, Brandon, I understand that you're in the process coming out with this killer book, The Secrets of the Top 1%. And I also understand that you're looking to make a big splash when you release that thing and you're self-publishing." Well, what we have a track record of is doing exactly that with self-publishers. Matter of fact, with one of our most recent clients, we helped them reach #1 on Amazon, and they had a relatively small list. And basically what I like to do is ask you a couple questions right now, see if we might have the basis for further conversation.
Wow. That was good. So that was the intro, the intelligence about you. You dropped the clients, then you went into questions and discovery, and you asked for permission too. What is the acronym? I'm sure I know this because I've read Art's books and newsletters, but what is the 7-step acronym for your smart calling?
Well, actually, I'm not sure I had an acronym for that part of it.
Okay. But, I was doing it in my head. Intro, intelligence, IIA, CQP, like intro, intelligence, about us, clients, question, permission. But go ahead. What
Yeah, well, basically, I mean, to break it down, to actually simplify it, you introduce yourself and company, and then we use our smart calling intelligence. I call that the connection. So whatever the connection might be, and it might be as simple as somebody did this with me the other day. They said, "Hey, I really enjoyed your." So, for example, in your case, "Hey, Brandon, I really enjoyed your post the other day about the micro commitments that you suggest that people make to get success," and it could be that simple. So what I've done there is I've shown you that, hey, I'm just not smiling and dialing. I know something about you. And at a psychological level, what you're doing is, oh, there's a guy that's actually, done something, knows something about me. And now, boom, my next step is my possible value statement. And what we do is specialize in, now notice I didn't tell you, you still don't even know what the service is, but I talked about the result, right? So we can talk about the thing, we talk about the result. And
you put the result right away. Like we help you become best-selling authors.
Yeah, we hint at the possible result. And then I piled on with a little bit more. And that is the credibility part, where I gave an example of what we've done for somebody else. So we're using social proof. And then the very last part is the transition to the questioning. And another major mistake people make at the beginning of prospecting calls is they ask for a decision. And I know there are people teaching this, but I adamantly suggest against this. because, for example, asking for a decision would be, and what I like to do, Brandon, is set up a time when we can get together and I can come out there and show you what we do, or we could set up an appointment for another call, which, by the way, always confounded me. I mean, it's hard enough, like we just established, to get somebody on the phone the first time. Why would I call you, get you on the phone to say I want to set up another time to get you? I already got you on the damn phone. Let's talk, right?
Right. Go through discovery while you got them. Yeah.
Yeah. But the key is, I'm not going to, again, ask for a decision or even hint at the fact that I want to do business with you. I want to ask one of the easiest questions in the world, which is, can I ask you some questions? Because I want to make that very easy for you to answer. All I'm really trying to do is to use the first 10 seconds to earn the next 30 seconds. Awesome. At the end of my opening, I want you saying, oh yeah, sure. What do you want to know? Really, two objectives in my mind for the first 10 seconds of the call. Put somebody in a positive, receptive state of mind, because every call is an interruption unless you had an appointment. And even if you had an appointment, you're still interrupting something because they're still not as invested in it as you are. So we need to get them in a positive, receptive state of mind. And if it is truly a new call, they're going to be trending towards resistance if we don't reverse that pretty quickly. So that's what the possible value does. Positive, receptive state of mind. And the only other objective, get them talking. Get them talking from that positive, receptive state of mind.
Yeah. No, that's been a huge game changer that I know we've applied. I know a lot of our customers apply, is that, the intro and then the intelligence, the connector, which you phrase it. And I like that the first 10 seconds is to earn the right for the next 30 seconds. I like how you stated that. That's like, you got 10 seconds, that's it. And if you do great, you'll have another 30. And if not, it's over.
And then the next 30, we need to keep earning the right to stay on the phone until somebody's invested in the conversation.
Yeah, it's almost like every 30, you're fighting to earn the next 30. That's why it's so critical to leverage your secret. Get information before you give it. And then you can craft, tailor, and personalize. Although you could, with your 7 steps, you're kind of crafting, tailor, and personalizing, and then you're getting information to give it. It sounds like.
Yeah. Again, there's a lot goes into it. I don't want to make it sound too complicated because it's not, and people can do it relatively quickly once they have the process down. But I mean, the real key is just trying to find out something. And again, it doesn't need to be earth-shattering stuff. And the level of this will be dependent on the sophistication of your call. Again, somebody who's doing something a little bit more transactional probably won't spend as much time, probably doesn't need to go into as much depth. Yeah. But still, the more I can make it about you, the better my chances are of you leaning in saying, okay, sure, yeah, what do you have? Yeah. Now, some people are just naturally nice, not a lot.
Not a lot of salespeople or marketers that we sell to.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Amazing. Well, Art, this is great, man. The 7 steps: intro, the intelligence or the connector, about us, and then leveraging the result or possible result. Then the proof. What are the clients that you've helped that are very damn similar to the client or the prospect that you're pitching? Then you're going to ask for permission, and you're going to go through into that. Do you mind if I ask you a few questions, right? What's the best way to ask permission, in your opinion?
Yeah, and this opens up an entire other can of worms. I mean, if you want to start a big discussion on LinkedIn or anywhere, say, should you ask somebody for their time at the beginning of a call? And my feeling is it depends. It really depends, number one, on you personally. Are you comfortable doing it? I can argue both sides of the issue. One is some people will say, hey, you already have them on the phone. If you ask for their time, gives them an opportunity to get you off the phone. The other one is, hey, I'm calling high-level decision makers. I want to show respect for their time. And I absolutely agree with both of those. Okay. So it really depends on you. Now, my only rule here is if you feel like you need to ask somebody or respect somebody's time, I like to word it in the form of a statement. So after my possible value statement, I'll say, and Brandon, if I've reached you at a good time, what I'd like to do is ask you a couple quick questions, see if we might have the basis for further conversation. So notice there, I've just touched on it. I didn't say, do you have a few moments to talk?
Wow. The basis for, future conversation. I like it's so soft. It's not like to book another appointment, to schedule an hour on the count. It's like, hey, I just want to ask a few questions just to see if it's a basis for a future discussion, future conversation.
I mean, would somebody go up to somebody else in a bar that they don't know and say, hey, I'm a pretty cool guy. Want to go out on a date on Thursday, 7:00?
Yeah, no. Or like, hey, I'm a pretty cool guy. Do you want to get married?
Oh, that one too. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I mean, a lot of these are super aggressive. I mean, like literally while we've been on this, I just saw 7 different LinkedIn pitches come through on my LinkedIn, and it's just people just pitching. And, all the salespeople out there, marketers, entrepreneurs, recruiters that are watching and tuning in, this has been amazing. Your sales secret. I love it. Your journey has been incredible. You made a massive positive impact on my life, our team's lives here selling at Seamless. And I know you help a lot of salespeople out there. Where can the audience find you, follow you, subscribe for more, from Art?
Probably the best place to go. My hub for almost everything is pretty simple. Smartcalling.com. Smartcalling.com. That's actually our blog, but you can get access to all my other sites there, including a new podcast, which is, are you sitting down? The Art of Sales.
I love that. I know. I love it. I think Art invented the art and science of selling, but that's
my
awesome.
parents gave me this name, and I figured I got to do something. Well, I got to get something positive out of it.
Dude, it's amazing. Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Art. And thank you, audience, for joining us for this episode of Sales Secrets from the Top 1%, where the world's best sales experts share their secrets to sales success. Order your copy at secretsalesbook.com, secretsalesbook.com. Thanks again so much, Art, for joining us today.
Brandon, thank you for having me. It was great, and enjoy the book, everybody. There's a lot of great information in there.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of Sales Secrets from the Top 1%. We release new episodes every Monday and Thursday, so make sure you subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube to never miss an episode.